The complete work of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 5, The Hindu's Religion, Minneapolis Star, November 25th, 1893. Brahminism is all its subtle attraction because of its embodiment of ancient and truthful principles, was the subject which held an audience in closest attention last evening at the First Unitarian Church, Minneapolis. Minneapolis. While Swami Vivekananda expounded the Hindu faith, it was an audience which included thoughtful women and men, for the lecturer that been invited by the peripatetical peripatetics peripatetics, and among the friends who shared the privilege with them were ministers of various denominations as well as students and scholars. Vivekananda is a Brahmin priest and he occupied the platform in his native grap, with kaftan on head, orange color coat confined at the waist, with a red sash and red nether garment. He presented his faith in all sincerity, speaking slowly and clearly, convincing his hearers by quietness of speech rather than by rapid action. His words were carefully weighed, and each carried its meaning directly. He offered the simplest truth of the Hindu religion, and while he said nothing harsh about Christianity, he touched upon it in such a manner as to place the faith of Brahma before all. The all pervading thought and leading principles of the Hindu religion is the inherent divine divinity of the soul. The soul is perfect, and the religion is the manifestation of divinity already existing in men. The present is merely a line of demarcation between the past and future, and of the two tendencies in men is the good preponderation. He will move to the higher sphere. If the evil has power, he degenerates. These two are continually at work within him. What elevates him is virtues, and that which degenerates is evil. Vivekanand will speak at the First Unitarian Church tomorrow morning. Des Moines News, November 28, 1893. Swami Vivekananda, the talented scholar from the far of India, spoke at the Central Church last night, November 27th. He was the representative of his country and creed at the recent Parliament of Religion assembled in Chicago during the World's Fair. Rev. H. O. Braden introduced the speaker to the audience. He rose and, after bowing to his audience, commenced his lecture, the subject of which was Hindu religion. His lecture was not confined to any line of thought but consisted more of some of his own philosophical views relative to his religion and others. He held that one must embrace all the religions to become the perfect Christian. What is not found in one religion is supplied by another. They are all right and necessary for the true Christian. When you send a missionary to our country, he becomes a Hindu Christian, and I a Christian Hindu. I have often been asked in this country if I am going to try to convert the people here. I take this for an insult. I do not believe in this idea of conversation. Today, we have a sinful man. Tomorrow, according to your idea, he is converted and by attains unto holiness. Whence comes this change? How do you explain it? The man has not a new soul, for the soul must die. You say he is changed by God. God is perfect, all powerful, and is purity itself. Then, after this man is converted, he is the same God minus the purity he gave that man to become holy. There is in our country two words which have an altogether different meaning than they do in this country. They are religion and the sect. We hold a religion, embrace all the religions. We hold that religion embraces all religions. We tolerate everything but intoleration. Then there is that word sect. Here it embraces those sweet people who wrap themselves up in their mantle of charity and say, "We are right, you are wrong." It reminds me of the story of the two frogs. A frog was born in a well and lived its whole life in the well. One day, a frog from the sea fell in the well and they commenced to talk about the sea. The frog whose home was the well asked the visitor, "How large is the well?" how large is the sea was, but was unable to get an intelligent answer. The then the at-home frog jumped from one corner to the of the well to the another and asked his visitor if the sea was large enough. He said yes. The frog jumped again and said, "Is the sea that large?" and received an affirmative reply. He said to himself, "This frog must be a liar. I must put him out of my well." That is the way this with these sects. That is the way with this sect. They seek to eject and trample those who do not believe as they do. Next, the Hindu monk. Appeal Avalanche Avalanche January. Appeal Avalanche January 16th, 1894. Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk who is to lecture at the auditorium tonight, is one of the most eloquent men who has ever appeared on the religious or lecture platform in this country. His matchless oratory, deep penetration into things occult, his cleverness in depth, and great earnestness captured the closest attention of the world's thinking man at the closest attention of the world's thinking man at the World's Fair Parliament of Religion, and the admiration of the thousands of people heard, who have since heard him during his lecture tour through many of the states of the Union. In conversation, he is the most pleasant gentleman. His choice of words are the gem of the English language, and his general bearing ranks him with the most cultured people of the Western etiquette and customs. Has a companion, he is the most charming man, and has a conversationalist, he is perhaps not surpassed in the drawing room of any city in the Western world. He speaks English not only distinctly but fluently, and his idea has a has sparkling drop from his tongue in a perfectly bewildering overflow of ornamental language. Swami Vivekananda, by his inherited religion or early teachings, grew up a Brahmin, but becoming converted to Hindu religion, he sacrificed his rank and became a Hindu priest, or has known in the country of the Oriental's ideality, a sannyasi. He said he had always been close friend student of wonderful he had always been a close student of wonderful and mysterious work of nature, as drawn from God's high conception, and with years spent as both a student and teacher in higher colleges of that eastern country, he acquired a knowledge that has given him a worldwide reputation as one of the most thoughtful scholars of the ages. His wonderful first address before the members of the World's Fair Parliament stamped him at once as a leader in that great body of religious thinkers. During the session, he was frequently heard in defense of his religion, and some of the most beautiful and philosophical gem that graced the English language rolled from his lips there in therein picturing the higher duties that man owed to man and to his creator. He is an artist in thoughts, an idealist in the belief, and dramatist on the platform. Since his arrival in Memphis, he has been guest of Mr. Hull L. Brinkley, where he has received calls day and evening from many in Memphis who desire to pay their respect to him. He is also an informal guest at the Tennessee Club and was a guest at the reception given by Mr. S. R. Shepherd Saturday evening. Colonel R.B. Colonel R.B. Snowden gave a dinner at his home at Ennisdale in honor of the distinguished visitor on Sunday, where he met Assistant Bishop Thomas F. Geller, Reservoir Dr. George Patterson, and the number of other clergymen. Yesterday afternoon, he lectured before a large and fashionable audience composed of members of 19th Century Club in the room of a club in the Randolph building. Tonight, he will be heard at the auditorium on Hinduism. Next, plea for tolerance. Memphis Commercial, January 17, 1894. An audience of fair proportion gathered last night at the auditorium to greet the celebrated Hindu monk Swami Vivekananda in his lecture on Hinduism. He was introduced in a brief but informing address by George R. J. Morgan, who gave a sketch of the development of the great Aryan race, from which development have come to Europeans and the Hindus alike, so tracing a racial kinship between the people of America and the speaker who was to address them. The immense Oriental was received with liberal applause and heard with attentive interest throughout. Throughout, he is a man of fine physical presence, with regular bronze features and of fine proportions. He wore a robe of pink silk fastened at the waist with a black sash, black trousers, and about his head was gracefully draped a turban of yellow Indian silk. His delivery is very good. His use of English been perfect has regards choice of words and correctness of grammar and construction. The only inaccuracy of pronunciation is in the assenting of words at times upon a wrong syllable. syllable. Attentive listeners, however, probably lost few words, and their attention was well rewarded by an address full of original thoughts, information, and broad wisdom. The address might fitly, fitly be called a plea for universal tolerance, illustrated by remarks concerning the religion of India. This spirit, he contended, the spirit of toleration and love, is the central inspiration of all religions, which are worthy, and this he think is the end to be secured by any forms of faith. This talk concerning Hinduism was not strictly circumstantial. His attempt was rather to give an analysis of its spirit than a story of its legends or a picture of its forms. He dwelt upon only a few of the distinctive creedals or ritual features of his faith, but this he explained most clearly and perspicuously. He gave a vivid account of the mystical features of Hinduism, out of which the so often misinterpreted theory of reincarnation has grown. He explains how his religion ignored the differentiation of time, how just as all men believe in the present and the future of the soul. So the faith of Brahma believes in the past. He made it clear too how this faith does not believe in original sin, but bases all effort and aspiration on the belief of the perfectibility of humanity, improvement and purification. He contends must be based upon hope. The development of man is a return to an original perfection. This perfection must come through the practice of holiness and love. Here he showed how his own people have practiced these qualities, how India has been a land of refuge for an oppressed sitting, the instance of welcome giving given by the Hindus to the Jewels when Titus sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. In a graphic way, he told that the Hindu do not lay much stress upon forms. Sometimes every member of the family will differ in their adherence of sect or adherence to sect, but all will worship God by worshipping the spirit of love, which is his central attribute. The Hindus, he says, hold that there is good in all religions, that all religions are embodiment of man, inspirations for holiness, and being such, all should be respected. He illustrated this by the citation from the Vedas, in which varied religions are symbolized as the differently formed vessels with which different men came to bring water from the spring. The form of the vessels are many, but the water of truth is what all seek to fill their vessels with. God knows all forms of faith. He thinks and will recognize his own name no matter what it is called or what may be the fashion of the homage paid for him. The Hindus, he continued, worship the same God as the Christians, the Hindu trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh or Shiva is merely an embodiment of God, the creator, preserver, and destroyer. That the three are considered three instead of one is simply a corruption due to the fact that general humanity must have its ethics made tangible. So, likewise, the material image of Hindu gods are simply symbols of divine qualities. He told, in explanation of the Hindu doctrine of incarnation, the story of Krishna, who was born by the Immaculate Conception, and the story of whom greatly resemble the story of Jesus, teaching the teachings of Krishna, he claims, is the doctrine of love for its own sake, and he expressed it by the words if the fear of Lord is the beginning of the religion, the love of Lord is its end. His entire lecture cannot be sketched here, but it was a mastery appeal for brotherly love and an eloquent defense of the beautiful faith. The conclusion was especially fine when he acknowledged his readiness to accept Christ, but must also bow to Krishna and to Buddha. And when, with the fine picture of the cruelty of civilization, he refused to hold Christ responsible for the crimes of progress. Manners and customs in India. Appeal Avalanche, January 21st, 1894. Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk, delivered a lecture at La Salite Academy, Memphis, yesterday afternoon. Owing to the pouring rain, a very small audience was present. The subject discussed was manner and custom in India. Vivekananda is advancing theories of religion, thought which find ready lodgment in the mind of some of the most advanced thinkers of this as well as other cities of America. His theory is fatal to the orthodox belief as taught by the Christian teachers. It has been the supreme effort of the Christian American America to enlighten the beclouded minds of Hatton, India. But it seems that the oriental splendor of Vivekananda religion has eclipsed the beauty of the old time Christianity, as taught by our parents, and will find a rich field in which to thrive in the minds of some of the better educated of America. This is a day of fad, and Vivekanand seemed to be feeling a long felt want. He is perhaps one of the most learned men in his country and possesses a wonderful amount of personal magnetism, and his hearers are charmed by his eloquence, which, while he is liberal in his view, he sees very little to admire in the Orthodox Christianity. Vivekananda has Vivekanand has received more marked attention in Memphis than almost any lecturer or minister that has ever visited the city. If a missionary to India was as cordial received as the Hindu monk in here, the work of spreading the gospel of Christ in Hatton Lens would be well advanced. His lecture yesterday afternoon was an interesting one from the historic point of view. He is thoroughly familiar with the history and tradition of his native country, from where ancient history up to the present, and can describe the various places and objects of interest there with grace and ease. During his lecture, he was frequently interrupted by the question propounded by the ladies in the audience, and he answered all queries without the least hesitancy, except when one of the ladies asked a question with the purpose of drawing him out into a religious discussion. He refused to be led from the original subject of his discourse and informed the interrogator that at another time he would give his view on the transmigration of soul, etc. In the course of his remark, he said that his grandfather was married when he was 3 years old and his father was at 18, but he had never married at all. A monk is not forbidden to marry, but if he takes a wife, he becomes a monk with the same power and privilege and occupies the same social position as her husband. In answer to the question, he said, there were no divorces in India for any cause, but if after 14 years of married life, there were no children in the family, the husband was allowed to marry another with the wife's consent. But if she objected, he could not marry again. His description of the ancient mausoleums and temples were beautiful beyond comparison and goes to show that the ancient possessed scientific knowledge far superior to the most expert artisans of the present day. Swami Vivekananda will appear at the YMHA Hall tonight for the last time in the city. He is under contract with the Slayton Lyceum Bureau of Chicago to fill the 3 years engagement in this country, and he will leave tomorrow for Chicago where he has an engagement for the night of the 25th. It is quite unlikely that Swamiji made the remark attributed to him regarding the marriage of monk. This must have been an aberration on the part of the reporter, for as is well known, if a sannyasi takes a wife, he is considered by the Hindu society to be a fallen person and beyond the pale. Detroit Tribune, February 15, 1894. Last evening, a good-sized audience had privilege of seeing and listening to the famous Hindu monk of the Brahmo Samaj, Swami Vivekanand, as he lectured at the Unitarian Church under the auspices of the Club. He appeared in native costumes and made with his handsome face and stalwart figure a distinguished appearance. His eloquence held the audience in rapt attention and brought out applause at frequent intervals. He spoke of the manner and customs of India and presented the subject in the most perfect English. He said they did not call their country India nor themselves Hindus. Hindustan was the name of the country and they were Brahmins. In ancient times, they spoke Sanskrit. In the language, in that language, the reason and meaning of the word was explained and made quite evident, but now that is all gone. Jupiter in Sanskrit means or meant Father in heaven. All the language of the northern India were now practically the same. But if he should go into the south part of that country, he could not converse with the people. In the words father, mother, sister, brother, etc., the Sanskrit gave very familiar pronunciation. This and other fact led him to think we all come from common stock, Aryans. Nearly all branches of this race have lost their identities. There were four castes: the priest, landlord, military, and trade peoples, and the artisans, laborers, and servants. In the first caste, In the first caste, the boys at the age of 10, 11, or 13, respectively, are placed in the hands of the professors of the universities and remain with them until 20, 30, 25, 30, or 20 years of age, respectively. In ancient times, both boys and girls were instructed, but now only the boys are favored. In an effort, however, is being made to rectify the long existing wrong. A good share of philosophy and laws of the land in the work of woman during the ancient times before the barbarians started to rule the land. In the eyes of Hindu, the woman now has her rights. She holds her own and has a law on her side. When the student returns from the college, he is allowed to marry and have the household. Husband and wife must bear the work and both have their rights. In the military caste, the daughter oftentimes can choose her husband, but in all other cases, all arrangements are made by the parent. There is a constant effort now being made of remedy infant marriage. The marriage ceremony is very beautiful. Each touches the heart of the other. They swear before God and the assemblage that they will prove faithful to each other. No man can be priest until it marries. When a man attends public worship, he is always attended by his wife. In his worship, the Hindu performs five ceremonies: worship of his god, worship of his forefather, of the poor, of the dumb animals, and of the learning ones. As long as a Hindu has anything in the house, a guest must never want. When he is satisfied, then the children, then the father and the mother partakes. They are the poorest nation in the world, yet except in times of famine, no one dies of hunger. Civilization is a great work, but in comparison, the statement is made that in England, one in every 400 is a drunkard, while in India, the proportion is one in every million. A description was given of the ceremony of burning the dead. No publicity is made except in the case of some great nobleman. After a 15 days fast, gifts are given by the relative in behalf of forefathers to the poor or for the information or for the formation of some institution. On moral matters, they stand head and shoulders above all other nations. Next, Hindu philosophy. Detroit Free Press, February 16, 1894. The second lecture of Hindu monk Swami Vivekananda was given last evening at the Unitarian Church to the large and very appreciative audience. The expectations of the audience that the speaker would enlighten them regarding the Hindu philosophy, as the lecture was entitled, was gratified to only a limited extent. Allusions were made to the philosophy of Buddha, and the speaker was applauded when he said that Buddhism was the first missionary religion of the world and that it had secured the largest number of converts without the shedding of a drop of blood. But he did not tell his audience anything about the religion or philosophy of Buddha. He made a number of cute little jabs at the Christian religion and alluded to trouble and misery that had been caused by its introduction into the heathen countries. But it skillfully avoided any comparison between the social condition of the people in his own land and that the people to whom he was speaking. In the general way, he said, the Hindu philosophers thought from the lower truth to the higher truth, whereas a person accepting a newer Christian doctrine is asked and accepted to throw his former belief all away and accept the newer in its entirely. It is an ideal dream when all of us will have the same religious view, said he. No emotions can be produced except by by clashing elements, by clashing elements acting upon the mind. It is the revulsion of change, the new light, the presentation of the new to the old, that elicits sensation. As the first lecture had antagonized some people, the Free Press reporters was very cautious. Fortunately, however, the Detroit Tribune consistently upheld Swamiji and thus in its report On February 16, we get some idea of his lecture on Hindu philosophy. Although the Tribune Although the Tribune reporter seems to have taken somewhat sketchy notes.